The sound that woke me wasn't my alarm clock. It was fists pounding on my front door like it owed them money. Boom! 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 I leapt out of bed, heart racing, confused. My wrapper barely held around my chest as I stumbled toward the door. It was barely 7 a.m. The sun hadn't even fully risen, yet chaos had already knocked. "Open up this door!" a woman's voice screamed. It was familiar, too familiar. I opened the door, and my world tilted. My mother-in-law, Mama Kenneth, stood there like a storm, flanked by her daughter, Ifeoma, two police officers, and a crowd of neighbors, some of them still in pajamas. Phones were out, cameras recording, faces whispering. "There she is," Mama Kenneth shouted, pointing at me like I was some wild animal. "That's the murderer. That's the witch who killed my son." My mouth dropped. "What?" Before I could finish, one of the officers pushed past me, stepping into my sitting room like he owned the place. "You are under arrest for the suspected murder of your husband, Mr. Kenneth Okoro. You have the right to remain silent." I screamed, "Murder! Kenneth is not dead! He's missing!" But my cries were drowned by Mama Kenneth's wails. "Missing? He left this house 2 months ago and was never seen again. And who else was with him that night? You!" I could barely breathe. "He said he was traveling for business. He never came back." The female officer cuffed my hands like I was a common thief. My wrapper fell loose, exposing my chest as I shrieked, humiliated and trembling. The crowd gasped. Phones zoomed in. My name was being buried before my husband's body was ever found. I looked into Mama Kenneth's eyes. There was no pity, no grief, only hatred. "You were never good enough for my son," she hissed. "Now the whole world will see what you really are." As they dragged me to the waiting police van, barefoot and broken, I realized something deep in my gut. Kenneth wasn't just missing. This was planned. Someone wanted me destroyed, and I was going to find out who. The holding cell smelled of sweat, fear, and forgotten people. I sat on the cold cement floor, my head resting on my knees, trying not to cry anymore. But it was useless. Tears flowed like a river down my cheeks. I'd never stepped foot in a police station before. Now I was behind bars, being called a murderer. The officer at the desk, a thick-necked man with sleepy eyes, kept glaring at me like I was wasting his time. Maybe I was, because what could I possibly say that would matter? Kenneth was missing. Not confirmed dead. Not confirmed alive. Just gone. That night, that cursed night he left. I remember it vividly. He packed his small travel bag, said he had a quick business meeting in Port Harcourt, and kissed me on the forehead. "I'll be back before weekend, Ada. Hold the fort." Those were his words. The last words I heard from the man I married. The police said he never made it to Port Harcourt. His phone stopped ringing that same night. His car was later found abandoned near a bridge, but there was no sign of foul play. And now? Now they wanted me to explain his disappearance, like I had him buried under the tiles of our small home. "Where did you hide his body?" the officer barked suddenly, jolting me. I looked up, blinking. "I didn't kill him." "So where is he?" "I don't know. I wish I did. He's my husband. Why would I hurt him?" He leaned back in his chair and smiled bitterly. "You tell me. Maybe it's the money. Maybe he cheated. Maybe you had a lover. Women like you always have a reason." I clenched my fist. "Then show me his body. Bring out his corpse. Let me see him." The room went quiet, because the truth was they couldn't. There was no body, no bloodstains, no knife, no gun, no proof, only grief. accusations, assumptions, and Mama Kenneth's voice, loud in every hallway of the station, screaming, "Arrest her! She knows what happened to my son!" I was later allowed a call. I called my elder brother, Obina. He didn't even let me finish before yelling, "Ada, what did you do? How could you?" It broke me more than the handcuffs did. No one believed me, not even my blood. And somewhere out there, if Kenneth was still breathing, he was letting me rot. But why? What kind of man walks away and lets the world think he's dead, while his wife drowns in shame? I wiped my tears and sat up straight. If Kenneth was dead, I deserved justice. But if he was alive, then someone was playing God, and I would find them, even if it killed me first. I met Mama Kenneth on the worst day of my life. Not because she was rude, not because she scowled at me like I was a rat crawling into her family, but because from that first day, I saw it in her eyes. She hated me without cause. And now, as I sat inside the police station's grim visitor cell, chained more by shame than cuffs, her face flashed again in my mind like a bad spirit that refused to let me go. I should have known her love came with poison. 3 years earlier, when Kenneth introduced me as his fiancée, his mother didn't smile. She sat with her arms folded, lips tight, and eyes scanning my body like I was secondhand fabric. "Is this the Ada girl?" she asked, her tone sharp. Kenneth beamed with pride. "Yes, Mama, she's a teacher. Very smart, very respectful." She didn't even let him finish. You said she's from where again?" "Ebony," Mama Kenneth hissed. "So you searched the entire Lagos and Anambra, only to bring home a village girl from Ebony? Did you lose your eyes or your mind?" That was our first conversation. From then on, she made it her mission to remind me that I was a mistake. I was too quiet, too ambitious, too independent. She wanted a woman who'd cook and kneel and bow, even when her heart was breaking. One night, 2 months after we married, I overheard her in the kitchen whispering to Kenneth, "She's barren. Can't you see? It's been 8 weeks and no sign of pregnancy. You married a block of salt." I cried myself to sleep that night. In public, she played the role of Mama the Prayerful. At home, she was Mama the Tormentor. When I got pregnant 4 months later, she accused me of using charms. When I gave birth to a girl, she spat on my hospital floor. "You brought disgrace. A woman who can't produce a son is not a wife, she's a visitor." Kenneth stayed silent, always silent. Even when I bled from the stress, even when I almost lost our baby due to high blood pressure, which I later did and has been trying ever since, he told me, "She's just old-fashioned, Ada. She'll come around." But she never did. Now in the visitor's booth of the police station, she stood before me, aged, bitter, and triumphant. She didn't come to see if I was okay. She came to bury me herself. "I warned you," she said, voice low and venomous. "From the day you stepped into our lives, I told Kenneth you were evil. You brought nothing but sorrow." I said nothing. She leaned closer, her eyes blazing. "But God will punish you. As he punished Jezebel, he will punish you. If my son doesn't come back, I swear you will not live to see light again. You think prison is pain? Wait, you haven't met madness." I swallowed hard. She wasn't just grieving. She was cursing me, and part of me feared that her words would stick. But deep down, another part of me rose, fierce, angry, awake. If Kenneth was alive and hiding, then this woman was not just a victim. She was part of the web. And I would unravel every lie, starting with hers. Freedom never felt so heavy. The day they granted me bail, I thought I'd finally breathe again. But as I walked out of that police station, hand in hand with my lawyer, I realized I was no longer just Ada Okoro, teacher and wife. I had become Ada the killer, Ada the snake, Ada who murdered her husband and hid the body. And in Nigeria, that version of me was spreading faster than rain in a leaking roof. They didn't need evidence. They had gossip. The moment I stepped out into the street, someone pointed. There she is, the one that killed her husband. Another whispered, she used charm. That's how she got him in the first place. My heart sank. The market women stopped selling to me. The tailor I paid monthly told me she was no longer comfortable sewing for a widow murderer. Even the church I had served in for years made a quiet announcement the following Sunday. Due to the scandal surrounding Sister Ada, we will suspend her activities in the ushering unit until further notice. Not even Jesus was neutral. I returned home only to find my mother-in-law had thrown out my remaining property. My clothes, my baby's birth documents, even my framed wedding photo, all dumped in the sand like trash. A note taped to the wall read, "This house is not for ritualists." I wanted to scream, to tear my own skin, to find a rooftop and tell the world I did not kill him. But no one cared about the truth, only the story. My own family drew a line. I called my elder brother Obina again. He picked but didn't speak. "Brother, it's Ada," I whispered. He sighed long and hard. "Ada, please don't call this line again. My wife says you bring shame, and I have children in the school. Please, let's give this thing time." Let's give this thing time? Time to do what? Choke me. I sat on the roadside that night in front of the police station. Nowhere else to go. A woman passed with her daughter and tugged her close like I might bite the child. I closed my eyes and prayed for the first time in days. God, if Kenneth is dead, then show me peace. But if he's alive, wherever he is, don't let me die in his place. That night I slept in a borrowed wrapper behind an old shed, betrayed, broken, but still breathing. And I made myself a promise. If I can survive the court of public opinion, I can survive anything, because the truth, the public may not be the judge, but they are always the executioner. I didn't sleep for days. The shame, the stares, the silence from everyone who once called me Sister Ada now weighed on my chest like a heavy stone. But amidst it all, one thing kept echoing in my mind. Chike, Kenneth's best friend. Chike, the one person who knew his secrets, schedules, passwords, even the location of our spare house key. Chike had been silent, too silent, 2 weeks before Kenneth disappeared. I remember waking up at 2 a.m. to whispers. Kenneth was pacing our bedroom, phone pressed tight to his ear. "Chike, I told you I'm not doing it," he said. "Ada won't understand. Just leave me out of this one." Pause. "No, don't bring her into this. She's not like that." I pretended to sleep. I wanted to ask. I should have. But fear made me stay quiet. I'd learn later. Silence is the rope that ties you to regret. It had been a week since I left the police station. I had no home, no job, and no direction. So I went to Chike's mechanic shop. The moment he saw me walking in, something shifted in his body. His smile froze. His hand twitched. His legs, restless. "Ada, wow, it's been a while. You look thin," he stuttered, avoiding my eyes. "I was in jail," I said calmly. "They think I killed Kenneth." Chike looked away. "That's what people are saying. But you know how rumors—" "It's not a rumor if my hands still smell like prison soap," I snapped. He cleared his throat. "Sorry." I stepped closer. "Chike, do you believe I killed him?" He hesitated. That hesitation spoke louder than any scream. "I don't know what to believe," he finally muttered. "Then tell me this," I said, voice shaking. The night before he disappeared. Did he come to see you? More silence. I could hear the loud clang of a wrench dropping somewhere in the back of the shop, a reminder that people were listening. He leaned forward, whispering, Ada, let it go. The more you dig, the more danger you bring. There are things you don't understand, things Kenneth got into. I stepped back. You're hiding something. He looked at me, pained, torn. If you knew what I know, you'd disappear too. My heart dropped. So he's alive? Chike's face changed completely. Panic, fear, guilt, all in one expression. I didn't say that, he said quickly. I have to go. Chike, wait, is he? I said I don't know, he yelled too loud. Heads turned. He stormed into the back of the shop. I walked away shaking. Chike knew something, and it was eating him alive. His silence wasn't for my protection. It was for his own. And that meant only one thing. Kenneth wasn't just missing. He was running. From what? From who? Or worse, from me. I was coming back from market when I noticed a tinted car following. At first I thought it was a coincidence, but after the constant follow and sudden giving me a "my eyes are on you" sign, became scared. My hands trembled. My breath caught in my throat. Someone was watching me. Someone knew I was questioning everything, including the missing body and the web of lies surrounding Kenneth's disappearance. That day, I couldn't focus. I locked my doors. I checked behind every curtain. Even my own shadow began to feel like an intruder. The neighbors noticed my restlessness, but dared not ask. They had already joined the public chorus that branded me a murderer and a disgrace. Now I was paranoid and alone. I tried to call Chica, the only one who believed something strange was going on. His phone rang endlessly. I decided to go to his shop, only to find the gate locked. His neighbor whispered to me that two men had come in a black Prado Jeep the previous night. There was shouting. Chike hadn't returned since. Someone was silencing the truth. I ran home with my heart pounding in my chest. I bolted the door and sank to the floor. The silence in the room roared louder than any noise. I kept hearing Chuka's voice. I kept hearing my own screams from the day they accused me. That night I received a second message. This time slid under my door. Next time it won't be a letter. It'll be your mother. Tears streamed down my cheeks. My mother, who was already fragile and heartbroken, had no idea what I was wrapped in. I wanted to scream, but I had no voice. I wanted to run, but where would I go? One thing was now certain. This wasn't just about a missing body anymore. This was war. I was folding laundry when I heard a gentle knock at back door. It wasn't the usual harsh pounding of neighbors or reporters. It was soft, almost apologetic. When I opened it, there stood Sister Ifeoma, Kenneth's only sister. Her eyes were red, swollen with tears. She looked broken. Ifeoma? I asked, confused. She hadn't spoken to me since the family accused me of killing her brother. Her silence had stung the most. It was because of her I got my home back. Without saying a word, she stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Then she hugged me, tight. Her body trembled, more like guilt. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have come sooner. Tears welled in my eyes, but I was too shocked to speak. I don't believe you killed Kenneth, she said, stepping back to look me in the eyes. I never did. I collapsed onto the couch, covering my mouth. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I wasn't sure what it could be, she said, clutching onto her bag. Ada, she said, her voice barely holding together. What if Kenneth is alive? What if he faked it all? The words hit me like a slap. I wanted to dismiss them, call it grief talking. But deep inside, hadn't I wondered the same? The night terrors, the whispering voices, his sudden disappearance, the shadow that watched me from across the street just last week. But why would he do that? I finally asked, my voice shaking. She looked away. You know my brother Ada. You knew the secrets he carried. His debt, his enemies, his guilt. Maybe this was his escape plan. Maybe you're not the reason he's gone. Maybe you're just his alibi. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Then she leaned in, lowered her voice like she was confessing a crime. Go to his old phone, Ada. If you still have it, there's a second SIM hidden behind the battery. He kept things there. Go to his old phone, Ada. If you still have it, there's a second SIM hidden behind the battery. He kept things there. Things you never knew about. She stood and held my hand. I don't know what's true anymore, but if Kenneth is alive, he owes you more than an apology. He owes you your life back. Then she turned and walked away, and I sat there in the silence of a broken home, with a new fire burning in my chest. If Kenneth faked his death, I would find him, and this time he would answer my questions. I barely slept after Sister Afeoma left. Her words echoed in my mind like a curse I couldn't shake. I waited until dawn, then opened Kenneth's old drawer. The phone was still there, his old Nokia torchlight. I opened the back. Just as she said, a second SIM. My fingers trembled as I slid it into my phone. A single contact list, a few odd messages, and one name that repeated itself in short, cryptic texts. Hotel Grandview, room 207. I Googled it. It was a low-cost hotel in Owerri, just 3 hours away. That same morning, I boarded a dusty interstate bus and headed for the city, a worn scarf tied over my hair, my eyes wide with fear and adrenaline. By 11 a.m., I was standing outside Hotel Grandview. The front desk was unimpressive, just a tired-looking man behind a scratched wooden counter. I hesitated, unsure what I was even looking for. Then I pulled out the only picture I had of Kenneth and placed it on the counter. Please, have you seen this man? He may have stayed here. The man squinted. Many faces pass through here, madam. I pushed gently. His name is Kenneth. Kenneth Okafor. Please, it's important. He sighed, pulled out a logbook, and flipped through the pages with the indifference of someone used to lies. Then he paused. Room 207, Kenneth Okafor. Checked in 2 weeks after the date you're asking about. My heart dropped. That can't be, I whispered. He disappeared before then. The man looked up sharply. You said what? I shook my head. Nothing, please. Can I see the receipt? He hesitated, then pulled it out and slid it toward me. Name, Kenneth Okafor. Room, 207. Date, the 14th of June. My knees nearly buckled. That was 2 weeks after Kenneth's supposed disappearance. He had stayed here, why I bore the shame of his disappearance. He was alive. I gripped the receipt like it was my only lifeline. The man spoke again. He didn't use that name when he left. The day he checked out, he signed Kelvin O. Kelvin, Kenneth, K.O. I was shaking. Do you have any CCTV footage from that day? He shook his head. Power outage wiped most of it, but someone did ask about him not long ago. Another woman, quiet, said she was his wife, but she wasn't you. My heart froze. What did she look like? He shrugged. Light-skinned, fancy nails, had a northern accent. I stood still for a long moment, the pieces rearranging in my head like a puzzle designed to drive me insane. Who was she? What was Kenneth running from? Or who was he running with? Whatever this was, it was no longer about a missing husband. It was a trap that I had been thrown into, and I was only now realizing how deep the lies ran. I left the hotel with the receipt clutched tight and one resolve echoing in my mind. I returned from the hotel with a storm raging inside me. I felt betrayed, humiliated, but most of all, angry. How dare Kenneth fake his death? How dare he abandon me? The receipt never left my hand as I sat in a dusty park near the bus terminal. I didn't want to go home. Not yet. My instincts told me I was close. Too close to stop now. I didn't notice the man watching me. He was tall, rough-skinned, with a faded cap and sharp, shifting eyes. I first spotted him across the road, then again when I changed locations, then again near the market. When I entered the cheap guest house I was staying in for the night, he followed. My room was small, no fan, the windows covered with tattered blinds. I locked the door, heart pounding, but just as I sat down, a knock. I froze. Slowly I moved to the door. "Who is it?" No answer. I opened the door just a crack, and there he stood, the man from earlier. I tried to shut it, but he wedged his foot inside. "Madam, relax," he said calmly. "I'm not here to harm you. I know why you're here." My voice shook. "Leave, I'll scream." "No need," he said, pulling a crumpled photo from his pocket and slipping it through the door. I looked. It was Kenneth, alive, laughing, holding hands with a woman in a hijab. He looked nothing like the man I knew. My fingers went numb. "Where did you get this?" He leaned in. "I know where he is. I know who he's with, and I know why he disappeared." My throat dried. "Tell me." He smiled wickedly. "Information like this? It comes at a price." "How much?" 200,000 naira. Or I disappear and take the truth with me." I stared at him. "I don't have that kind of money." He shrugged. "Then you'll never know the rest. But I'll tell you this." He leaned closer, and his next words shattered every ounce of strength I had. "He's alive and he's not alone. He didn't just run away. He ran away with her. Your husband has a new life." Before I could say a word, he slipped away into the darkness. I collapsed onto the bed, shaking, the photo clutched in my trembling hand. The truth was uglier than I imagined. Kenneth wasn't kidnapped. He wasn't in hiding. He had chosen this. He had buried me with his lies, while living a second life with another woman. But why? I didn't cry. I couldn't. Grief had given way to rage. And I wasn't done yet. The stranger had vanished as swiftly as he appeared, but the photo he left behind haunted me. Kenneth, alive, smiling, holding hands with a woman who was not me. And somewhere in that image was a life he chose over ours. Using the contact Ifoma had passed to me and the small details I bribed from the hotel staff, I found it. A residential address in the outskirts of the city. It was a quiet compound. Too quiet. The kind of place people came to hide. I walked up the stairs, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. Flat 3B, I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. Desperation roared inside me. I looked around. No cameras, no security. I pressed the handle, unlocked. The door creaked open, slowly revealing a modest one-bedroom flat. Fresh air. Soft music playing from a Bluetooth speaker. Someone had just been there. I stepped in and froze. The scent hit me first. His cologne. The one I bought him on his birthday. The one he said made him feel like a man. It was unmistakable. And it was here. I walked further in, like a ghost, floating on numb legs. There were shoes by the door, Kenneth's size, a belt on the table, one I ironed for him before our wedding. Then I saw them, photos, on the shelf, on the wall, on the fridge. Kenneth, the woman, and a baby. My knees buckled and I sank to the floor, sobbing violently. The room spun. He wasn't kidnapped. He wasn't forced. He left me, and he'd started a new family. I picked up one of the framed photos. My fingers trembled as I ran them over Kenneth's smile. The woman beside him was the same one from the earlier picture, and the child, barely a year old, had his eyes, his chin. A son! I gasped as bile rose in my throat. The betrayal felt like a knife through my chest. He left me mourning him, planning his funeral, defending his name. While he played house in another city, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I screamed into my hands, my cries swallowed by the empty apartment. I staggered into the bedroom. His clothes were neatly folded, his slippers under the bed, a half-empty perfume bottle on the dresser, the one I used to wear. My hands clenched into fists. He brought my scent into our home. I wasn't just betrayed, I was replaced. Why, Kenneth? I whispered. Why did you destroy me to rebuild with someone else? As I slumped to the ground, surrounded by proof of his double life, something inside me shifted. The grief was no longer just pain. It was becoming purpose. The apartment door creaked again. I froze. Footsteps. Keys jangled. A familiar cough. I turned slowly, heart thundering in my ears. And there he was. Kenneth, alive, in the flesh. Dressed in a blue shirt I once bought him at Belogan Market, carrying a black nylon bag, probably groceries for his new family. The moment his eyes met mine, the color drained from his face. Ada, he choked, stumbling back like he'd seen a ghost. No, I whispered. You are the ghost. The silence between us was deafening. Time stood still. His eyes welled up. His lips trembled. For a moment, he looked like the man I married, the man I mourned. What are you doing here? He asked, voice low. I followed the lies, I said calmly, holding up the photo, and they led me here, to you, alive, with her, with a child. He was speechless, shameful, and guilt-stricken. I laughed bitterly. Is that why you faked your disappearance? Staged your own vanishing act like some Nollywood villain? He said nothing. You watched me suffer, your family suffer. You had your sister crying, believing you were dead. And for what? Kenneth dropped the bag and slowly sank into a chair, covering his face. I never wanted to leave. Then why? I demanded, voice rising. Why did you leave, Kenneth? He stared at me, and then said it. I was drowning, Ada. The business was gone. The money I borrowed from those men, I couldn't repay it. They threatened to kill me. They are very bad people. Just look at what they did to Chike. And every day I looked at you so strong, so organized, so full of light. I hated myself more. Coward, you're the weakest coward I have ever seen. I screamed and he nodded in acceptance. So you disappeared? I asked, voice trembling. You let me believe you were dead. Do you know what that did to me? You not only disappeared, you cheated on me. You claim you're running from the worst while you're the beast, I heartbrokenly said, trying not to break down in his presence. He hung his head in shame as should. A tear escaped my eye, but I wiped it quickly. Coward. I know, he whispered. We sat in silence again. No apology could fix this. No confession could rewind time. But I finally understood. Kenneth didn't just run away from life. He ran away from himself. Why now? I asked. Why let me find you? I didn't plan it, he said. But maybe, deep down, I wanted you to. I wanted to face it. Face you. I stood up slowly, dignity intact. You buried a woman who would have fought for you, Kenneth. You don't deserve my pain anymore. He nodded. For once, he didn't argue. I hope you find peace, I said quietly, but not with me. And with that, I walked away, free. Not from the memory of him, but from the weight of him. Kenneth's confession wasn't just words to me. It was evidence. I recorded everything, from the moment he admitted faking his death to the second he admitted cheating and the invisible he was running away from. I didn't plan to, but deep down, I knew they wouldn't believe me. Not his family, not the world. So I came prepared. 3 days later, I uploaded the audio to a private channel with a short, emotional caption. He faked his death. He watched us mourn. He left me for dead. I thought I'd feel free, relieved, cleansed. But the fire I lit spread faster than I could imagine. By evening, my phone buzzed like a trapped bee. Hundreds of comments, shares, articles, blogs, headlines. Nigerian woman exposes husband who faked death. Shocking confession. He let his family bury an empty coffin. And then the calls came. From his mother. From his brothers. From people who had once held me at my grief and said, "We're here for you." She came to my house with fire in her eyes. "You should have stayed hidden," Mama Kenneth hissed, slamming her handbag on my table. "Now the whole world knows our shame." I stood tall. "Your shame or his sin? People are laughing at us," she spat. "Do you know what this means for our family name?" I stared at her, stunned. "When he left me, you said God gives and God takes. You watched me mourn him like a widow. And now when I speak the truth, I'm the villain?" She said nothing, because deep down, she knew. But the worst came a week later. The backlash. Why now? She just wants attention. Maybe she pushed him to do it. A woman who records her husband is a serpent. She ruined his new life. I read every comment, every post, every insult. And it broke me. Because truth isn't always a savior. Sometimes truth is a sword that cuts you the deepest. I sat alone on my balcony that night, looking at the stars, wondering if I should have just walked away quietly. Let the lies rot in silence. But then I remembered something. Lies are heavy, but silence is heavier. And I chose lightness. Even if it meant standing alone, I didn't wear black when I left. I wore red, bold, fierce, alive, because Ada is not a widow. Not anymore. Not ever again. I packed my bags in silence, left the house his family once claimed as theirs, and walked away with nothing but my name. And that was enough. They expected me to break. They whispered about me in church pews, at market stalls, even in my mother's village. She should have let it go. She's shaming him. Kenneth didn't deserve this. But Kenneth was never dead. He just ran like a coward and left a woman to rot in the ruins of a love she didn't destroy. And sooner or later, whatever he's running from will catch up with him. And now, I'm done apologizing. I moved to a new town, rented a tiny flat above a tailor shop, started a small online food business. Just me, my pots, and a second chance. I don't look over my shoulder anymore. I don't wait for calls that never come. I don't beg people to believe me. The only person I live for now is me. One afternoon, while watching the rain soak the streets below, I said it out loud for the first time. I didn't kill him, but I buried the memory of him for good. And in that moment, Ada died and was reborn. Not as a widow, not as a victim, but as a woman who refused to die.